No, this isn't clickbait. This is indeed your last chance to buy the Project Omegas. In fact, I think you have until Monday. These are the Project Omegas by DMS. For those who don't know who that is, around these parts, he goes by Douglas. He's a dear friend of mine and has been for a very long time. DMS is a headphone junkie with a YouTube channel dedicated to all things head-fi, and I have been a huge fan of his creative work. I'm so grateful that this project has been as successful as it has been. Now, DMS did send me these headphones to review, and no, he didn't include a few Benjamins just to say some nice things. Also, there has been no conversations about keeping these, so for the sake of this little testimonial, consider it the truth without me having a horse in this race. Normally, I would spend more time chatting about every single detail of the product that I'm reviewing, but for this, I'm going to get straight to the point and then I'm going to work backwards from there. If we're talking about a dynamic driver headphone that's even-handed across the entire audio spectrum and a headphone that sounds so good that it doesn't matter what mood I'm in, these headphones, by a wide margin, are my favorite. Coming in at $1,000, these are not cheap and are literally built by hand, one at a time, with a lot of parts being 3D printed. So, if looks and aesthetics are a deal breaker for you, it's hard to say if these are going to win you over. The 3D printed parts are easy to spot and don't look nearly as clean, flashy, or for lack of a better term, pretty as something like the Meze Poets or Empyrean 2s that I've reviewed. Of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I stopped caring about how these look the second that I tossed them on my noggin. Build quality is fine, and in the latest batch, DMS has made some functional improvements over the ones that I have today.
I added in these in a little bag included with the cable. Now this is just a little 3D printed part that prevents the cup from tilting any further than this, so it doesn't flop quite as much.
The headband is soft and padded, it feels comfortable, and it has a nice finished look to it. The adjustments on the side are easy to use, whether the headphones are on your head or in your hands. And the ear cups are large enough and provide plenty of room inside the pads so your ears aren't pressed up against anything, which always drives most people crazy with over-ear headphones. The ear cups, on the sides of the ear cups, you also have these little holes that makes it really easy to adjust the resting angle for different head shapes and noggins. And then, my favorite part of the build of these headphones, these are impossibly lightweight. I cannot stress this enough. It is such a wonderful experience to throw these on my head and forget they are even there. I mean, now everyone's head is a little bit different, and I would imagine someone out there might not agree with me, but with the weight or lack thereof and how these fit on my head, the Omegas are, without a doubt, one of, if not the most comfortable headphones I have ever spent time with. Crazy comfortable. Oh, of course, the headphones do come with, a fancy pants braided cable, which is single-ended, 6.3 millimeter, quarter-inch plug connection. So there's that. So build quality is fine. For me, aesthetics are, whatever, and the comfort is out of this world. But hey, none of this means a hill of beans if the Project Omegas sound like pots and pans crashing down a stairwell, and lucky for us, that's hardly the case. To paint this picture as quickly as possible, let me say that as much as I love, and I mean love, the Meze Empyrean 2s, they can be a handful from time to time. Think of those headphones as the girl that you once dated. She was blonde, she wore a miniskirt, she had legs for days, perfect hair, and was never seen in anything other than high heels. She was smoking hot, But she was also insane. She hated your car, she refused to eat at Taco Bell, and she thought Star Wars was stupid. And I mean, look, being drop dead gorgeous, that's great and all, but again, you didn't marry her, and thank goodness for that. The Omegas, on the other hand, they're the girl you married. She's a brunette, often throws her hair back in a ponytail, wears jeans 90% of the time, and jacked your Led Zeppelin t-shirt on day one, and she wears it every day. She loves Taco Bell, loves Star Wars, but thinks that The Phantom Menace and everything after was a bad joke, and depending on how many Pabst Blue Ribbons that she puts away, she cusses like a sailor. Essentially, she's perfect. In other words, bringing this back to our turf, the Empyrean 2s can be bright, and the bass can be a little bit overbaked from time to time. Any kind of hair bands from the 80s can sound like trash, and there's no way you're making it more than 2 hours of listening before fatigue kicks you straight in the face. The Omegas, though, bring it on. And no, it doesn't really matter what the music is. Perhaps the perfect daily driver, the entire audio band on the Omega sounds even-handed, easy to get along with, and best of all, they don't run away from fireworks when they're needed. That is to say, while they're not as eager to stuff a zildjian down your throat as the Empyrean 2s, that's for all the drummers out there, they're not going to lull you to sleep like the Meze Poets are either. Sub bass, really low bass, isn't show-stopping on the Omegas. I've spent some time with some cans that will certainly give these a run for their money when it comes to really deep bass. So if rattling your cheekbones is a priority, there are going to be better options. But if the natural sound of a bass guitar, upright bass, lower toms, and kick drums is good enough for you, feel free to hover over the checkout button. Even better, the bass and mid-bass has loads of texture and detail, which for me is always a bigger priority over insanely deep bass. Mid-range on the Omegas is perfectly balanced, and at no point did I notice any kind of artistic coloration on male or female vocals. Higher pitched female vocals stayed refined and clear of any sibilance. Where the Empyrean 2s can bring the snakes to the audiophile party, the Omegas offer enough forgiveness in the upper mid-range to keep the hissing away. Also, upper mid-range, usually the hardest to get right in a headphone, sounds fantastic with instruments, including electric guitars, which are usually the first to sound offensive in a forward-sounding headphone. Cranking AC/DC or Metallica on the Omegas is not only fun, it is a freaking blast. Top-end treble response is also clean, and it's also very articulate. If the Empyrean 2s are a roller coaster ride without the safety harness, the Omega 2s still give you the thrill, but with a little bit more control and safety. The soundstage on the Omegas is wide but not artificially stretched, keeping things natural and immersive rather than exaggerated. There's a good sense of space, and to me, it's more like a perfectly treated listening room, open but intimate enough to keep everything cohesive. Instruments have room to breathe, but they never feel like they're floating too far away from the mix. Imaging is pinpoint accurate, probably one of my favorite things about the Omegas. It places every instrument exactly where it should be, whether it's a jazz trio, a full orchestra, or a stripped down acoustic session. You can close your eyes and track each performer's position without guessing. If you want to hear exactly where the drummer left his ride cymbal, done. Need to separate vocal layers in a complex mix? No problem at all. The Omegas just don't throw things all around your noggin. They paint a sonic picture with depth and insane precision. Bottom line, if the Empyrean 2s are like sitting in the front row at a concert, huge, immersive, but sometimes a little bit chaotic, the Omegas are like a perfectly dialed in near-field setup where balance, depth, and realism take center stage. You're not just hearing sound, you're hearing inside the mix, effortlessly picking apart layers without losing the magic of the performance. Last thing, these do need a headphone amp to get the best results. While I could power them up with my phone and laptop, throwing them on the incredible Sparkos Gemini was the complete sonic picture that most audiophiles will be searching for. Whether it's bass drive and authority or percussion waking up with a little bit more thunder, the Gemini was the tool needed to get us there. I am so proud of Douglas. He's been a great friend over the years in the YouTube space, and I hope that his fingers are bleeding after this launch from all the Omegas that he's had to put together. No joke or BS here. The Project Omegas aren't just a decent sounding headphone made by some random YouTuber looking to make a buck. They are my favorite dynamic headphones I've ever had the pleasure of listening to, made by one of the most creative and passionate artists that I know. Love you, Doug. Good job on these. And with that, I'll see you DMS loving audiophiles in the next video.